Testing.
Yeah, now the light's on.
Well, there you go. You all set?
We're all good?
You got your speakers on?
Yes. You guys are good? Speakers are on?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, great. So, welcome everyone. Good evening. Thank you for attending the 2025 Candidates Forum for our Town of Ware Board of Selectmen. My name is Dan Wandell. I am our current town moderator, and I'll be moderating our Candidates Forum this evening. Before we get started, I'd like to ask everyone in attendance to please stand, remove any caps or hats, so we can perform a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you all again, and thank you for the folks at home who are tuning in. Just giving kind of a high-level overview of the evening. Again, tonight is a candidates forum where we're going to give both gentlemen, Bruce and Tom, or excuse me, Paul, the ability to express their desire on wanting to run for selectmen, give the opportunity for them to describe, their thoughts and opinions on how they would manage that role, give the folks here the ability to ask questions, and obviously give the folks at home the ability to watch. So from a high-level perspective, I'm going to give each candidate the opportunity to introduce themselves. I'll give them a 5-minute cap. They can choose to use the entirety of that time or less. From there, I do have prepared approximately 6 sort of generic questions that I will be asking both candidates, and both candidates will be given the opportunity to respond. Following those questions, I will then open up the floor for anyone in attendance to ask questions of either candidate or both candidates. Just a clarification, I will allow direct questions to either candidate, and the other candidate is not obligated to answer, but will have the opportunity to also answer. So with that, Paul, would you like the opportunity to begin your 5 minutes?
Sure.
Sure.
So, hello everyone. My name is Paul Thoman. That's spelled Thoman. And let me start by thanking everyone involved for setting this up, including Naomi. My background is one of doing hard work to do anything I could to support my once young family. My early career was spent working in high-tech industries while going to night school for 9 years. I met my wife at work, and we have been married now 40 years, raising 3 children. We retired to Ware in 2023 and now enjoy the frequent visits of our grandchildren when they come to town. In case you were wondering about my age, I watched the first Super Bowl with my father when I was 8 or 9. My wife and I ran our own business for 33 years, and I've done everything from being an independent consultant for the defense industry to designing computerized pressure monitoring systems for the natural gas industry. With all that in my past, my reason for running going forward is to focus on the town's policies, old and new, and study the impact they have on our seniors. This demographic lives on a fixed income that is not increasing at the same rate of taxation. My wife and I left Nashua because the large tax increases had exceeded the value of the services the city provided, which is the complete opposite of why we moved there in 1990. We need to be empathetic to the seniors and continue to investigate solutions to retain and honor them, not necessarily to increase the budget, but to invoke some amount of balance. As a side note, we need to prepare our middle-aged residents for their senior years, of which I'll address later. So how can we as a community reward our seniors? Well, in our rural setting, it would be nice if we could attract an urgent care office, an information call center for specifically for seniors to answer senior concerns, which could be staffed by seniors, incorporate the current senior center, of course, and then maintenance volunteering. And I saw this on the the bulletin board out here, I don't know if anybody's aware of this, but there is a group here that will come to your house and fix anything, steps, door locks, leaky faucets, specifically for seniors, and you just have to call them. But that's a nice resource. Handle that, provide technical support and/or training. There's a lot of savings to be made, specifically with streaming, instead of using expensive cable, computers, internet, all those things, and try to teach, run classes, maybe down at the senior center, to, again, offset costs for seniors. I don't know about legal advice, if there's people in town that can handle some of that. Information research, again, this is going back to the call center. Information research relative to solicitors, scams, charities, transportation for seniors, some type of ride service, which I know others are also working on. We need to find more ways for raising revenue that is not mandated of the citizens. I realize this is difficult and requires time, of which I can provide. Here are a few ideas, but not limited to. A sports center instead of seasonal fields. They've got one in, they might even have two in Goffstown. I know there's one in Milford. A commercial greenhouse. That's a very profitable business. A bowling alley. A volunteer group making trademarked Pine Tree Riot merchandise from made in New Hampshire stores. Again, just try to raise some more revenue. An event center used for family reunions or weddings or maybe even weekend charity casinos. I mean, the charity casinos these days are everywhere, and they're making a tremendous amount of money and putting a lot of it into charities. And that's really how the state allows that to exist, the casinos. But they're extremely well attended. My wife Karen and I in Nashua lived literally down the street from one of them, and the place was packed, 6 nights a week. Just amazing.
One more minute, Paul.
Okay. Host a college annex for night courses, maybe. We need to continuously re-educate our middle-aged citizens on topics like finance and investment, land policies such as ADUs, understand current tax policies. All I know is after 40-plus years of supporting the town by paying high taxes, whether having children or not, seniors in this town deserve a lot more respect. The current town pattern for seniors seeking a much less expensive way of life ends up leaving town. This increases the gentrification of Ware, and I'll leave off here.
Thank you, Paul. Bruce, your 5 minutes can start.
Sure. My name is Bruce Fillmore. I was raised in New Boston, a few miles from here. Went to school in New Boston. I went to the Villa. I went to Bishop Brady in Concord, and then I went to Goffstown High School. I graduated from NHTI in Concord with an associate's degree in engineering. I raised my family in New Boston till 2002 when I built my house in Ware and moved here. So, pretty local. Between New Boston and here is my life. I'm a bit varied in the past. My family growing up was always in the building business. My father had a plumbing company. I had uncles that were home builders. So naturally, that's what I ended up doing. So I built a couple hundred houses, including some zero-energy houses, award-winning zero-energy houses. I've done a few small developments. And along the way, in the mid-'80s, I became a licensed septic designer and installer, which is what I primarily do now. I had some health problems a few years ago, and doctors told me never to pick up more than 35 pounds again the rest of my life, so had to get out of the field. Excuse me. In town, when I moved to town, I had been on the planning board in New Boston prior to moving to Ware. And I knew the time it took to serve on the planning board. So I decided I'm not gonna jump right into volunteering in Ware when I get there, but I was approached by planning board chairman about 10 years after I moved in town saying, Bruce, I'd like you to be on the planning board. So in 2013, I was appointed to the planning board, and before I was even my first planning board meeting, I was drafted to the CIP also. So I served on a CIP the same period I've served on the planning board, so I'm familiar with the struggles that we've had with capital projects and equipment, and to get them approved through the town and through the finance committee and all the hoops you have to go through. I was the town representative. I was also on the building committee, the DPW building committee, and I was a town representative overseeing that project when it was built. And it was built on budget. It might have been a month or so over the time allotment, but it was built on budget, and I think it's we got well what we paid for in that building. And I volunteered services in town in other ways. I've repaired the septic system at Chase Park with the help of the DPW. The town administrator and I got the dredge and fill permit to repair the boat launch, and I did all that, as a volunteer. But over the years, I've also seen what has been happening with other boards. And the direction that the select board has gone in the last couple of years is I'm kind of disappointed in it. In the last year, I think the current board is well-intentioned. I don't have any animosity about any of the current board members, but I think there's just a lack of knowledge of what particular boards and committees in town are responsible for. And the current select board has been hearing people, really not cases, because they don't have the statutory authority to hear them as cases, but they've been hearing zoning issues, planning board issues, building issues, that it's kind of getting off track because they don't have the jurisdiction to bring closure to what they've been hearing. And instead of referring them to the places where the people need to go, they've been hearing them here, and everybody that comes here, every affected person that comes here, whether it be a landowner or a butter, to the select board, they kind of leave not having answers to their questions. So it just, and rightfully so, because the selectmen don't have the authority to give them an answer.
But one more minute, please.
Okay, so I'd like to address that, and going along with that, with that same mentality, we've had a couple employees quit in the last year because they felt that the select board was not giving them the support they needed, and they, again, rightfully so. I know the particulars of a couple of them, and so the employee morale in town is not great right now. So, they really just need a little guidance on where to go. It's not an extreme change. It's not anything that I don't have any personal grudge or animosity against anybody. It's just I'd like to have the opportunity to guide the board to solve some of these problems.
Great, thank you. So with that, I'm going to direct some questions to the both of you. And just for the interest, we'll go every other. I have 6 questions here. We can start with Paul. But again, the same question is addressed to you as well, Bruce. And also just sort of outlining here, you both are addressing, the folks in the room as well as the folks at home. So that to them, you should be addressing your responses, not necessarily to me, and not to one another also. So my first question posed to the both of you is there an individual initiative that you would like to spearhead in particular as a selectman, should you earn that position? And Paul, I'll let you open that first.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to my opening. I really would like to see other ways of raising revenue in the town. And And I would like it to be able to support the seniors in many different ways, as I talked about.
Great, Bruce, same question. So a particular initiative that you'd sponsor or spearhead?
I don't know if there's any single individual initiative. I mean, one thing that needs to be done is they don't have a policy. I've looked on their website and I can't find a policy on the open mic night that they have every Monday night when they let people come to the podium and say whatever they feel is bothering them. Sometimes the public gets a little overambitious. And I think there needs to be a policy in place to help rein things in a little bit. It's not, it wouldn't be interfering with free speech, it would be interfering with hateful speech, which is not free speech. And if people want free speech, they should be out with a PA system out in the gazebo and they can say whatever they want. But when they're here on a town-sponsored website and event, they need to be respectful. And they don't have a policy on that at all.
Who is this you mean?
The select board.
Okay.
Excuse me, Mr. Mark, those questions you're asking, where do they come from?
They came from me.
They are.
These are my questions, yes. Yep. Okay, so another question, Bruce, you can start here. Can you speak on how you would work within the community to gather input and feedback on issues to help inform you on your decision making? So, to rephrase, how would you sort of, check the pulse of the voters in town to inform you in your decision making process? Bruce, I'll allow you to answer first.
Sure. I've been in town 23 plus years. Lived in the area my whole life. I know a lot of people in town. And people aren't afraid to call me, let me know what they're thinking. I'm not afraid to call people, ask them what they think of things. And I would do the same thing. I'm also on, if I monitor the Tupperware Facebook pages, sometimes things get a little carried away there, and I only submit my input when it really would be helpful to the discussion. I'm not, not on there to debate anybody, but I could also get input through that avenue.
Okay, Paul, same question.
It's my understanding there's really only 6,000 voters in town, and I think it should be easy to get a hold of them one way or another, to register them, I guess, with their email address so that we can have some kind of conversations and, let them vent to what's on their mind. And again, it would be, and I thought about this before the campaign, but there just wasn't a lot of time. And that would be to, try to get everybody's email together that's interested in talking to me.
Great, thank you. So Paul, I'll allow you to start here. So how should the town manage growth while maintaining green space and the rural character of Ware?
I think probably the best way is through industrial, bring more industrial businesses into some of these zoned areas that are off into the woods and far away from the rural charm of the town. And primarily because I think there's a workforce in town that would like to be working in town here, in this town, as opposed to traveling to go to work. So I think it'd be easier to bring in a lot more businesses that way, for that reason.
Bruce, same question.
Excuse me. That's a very, it's not difficult, it's just deep. Back when zoning started, I mean, the zoning commissions were, all the templates they gave all the towns for enacting zoning ordinance were cookie cutter lots. 200 feet by 400 feet, 2 acre lots, 200 feet of frontage, which 99% of the towns bought into. And this really chopped up a lot of open space. It looks like a lot of open space, but sometimes it could be 2 or 3 lots where people, the neighboring lots own them. It wasn't the best example to how to create zoning. A couple other ways that have been tried lately is transferable development rights, where you set aside a couple hundred acres over here, you tell the people it can't be developed, but you can figure how many lots you can get on your property, and you can sell those development rights to somebody over here. So that you preserve this whole big thing as open space, but you allow the density to go to one area of town, so you can determine where the density is around town that way, as opposed to just the willy-nilly method that's been happening since 1972. When zoning was first out in New Hampshire. The other thing is this, the state has taken this approach as a way to solve the low-income housing problem is ADUs. They've told towns, okay, anything residential, we have to allow an ADU if the lot can meet site loading from the DES. So that's the state's answer to low-income housing crisis, and they've allowed they said to the towns, you have to allow an ADU attached to the existing residential structure. But they said you can allow a detached ADU, which a lot of towns, including Ware, have decided not to do. As a planning board member, I tried to do that a couple of years ago. It didn't fly very well, but the state has made a couple of attempts at it, and they're making another attempt at it this year that I think stands a better chance than the previous attempts. But that doesn't solve your problem. All that does is allow people to put a two-bedroom accessory structure on their house that's not attached to the house. So it's a lot of different moving parts to that question. And it started years ago, and it's tough now that we've got a bunch of now 5-acre lots, but used to be 2-acre lots around town, that what's gonna happen sooner or later is when the town went to the 5 acres, sooner or later, those lots are gonna be subdividable because it's gonna be something less than 5 acres at some point. And it's just not gonna help the problem at all. But if you could do transferable development rights even for those, so that those people can say, okay, you can get the value of that lot, but someone else has to build it somewhere else. That's a way to look at it.
Thank you. So to Paul, and again, how have you connected with the departments in town, fire, DPW, police, and the subsequent committees? And how would you work with them as selectmen? And additionally, sort of a part two of that question is, are there any department initiatives in particular that are important to you?
Well, I want to pass on some story. I met with Police Chief Moore, and we talked about the new police communication system. To the credit of the department, the police department, they managed to shave $400,000 from the original estimate just by doing a lot of the antenna research by themselves. The officers did. They dug into that. And it's just amazing that, that was a big savings for the town. But yeah, I mean, I don't have any problem working with the different departments. I've spoken to Jason, just a little bit with Mark, but I had a long conversation with Jason. I understand a lot of his, what he's doing and what's going on, and the long hours they're putting in. Really, really commendable, but that's it.
Great, for same question.
Sure. I know all the department heads. I've worked with them for 13 years as a CIP committee. I've talked to them this week. I've talked to the fire chief. I've talked to the police chief. I met with Jason this afternoon. Jason and I talked about a couple things on his wish list for the DPW building. With this new communication system, what the police are doing, I mean, they've got a couple things on the ballot this year that they're looking for, but really, they're looking to stabilize their equipment purchases as far as the trucks and police cruisers. And as the CIP, we really have been working to stabilize those capital purchases, so it doesn't do this every year, it's just a flat line. And we're pretty much there, but now we need to be able to work with the finance committee and voters to explain why the work we put in and how it works, and to keep that going.
Thank you. And then my final question, how would you prioritize and manage local spending to ensure that taxes stay affordable, town service obligations are met, and the taxpayer is receiving value for the taxes that they pay? I think I had Paul go first, so Bruce.
Now, when you say taxpayers, there's like three different classes of taxpayers. There's people with families, there's younger people without families, and there's retired people with no kids. For perceived value, it's tough to pay for the schooling costs that we have. It's spread out over all three of those demographics, even though only one of those demographics gets value out of it. So the other two feel like they're not getting a good value because they're paying for something that they get no return out of. They're paying for educating their neighbors' kids. And until this, that's really a state issue to try to solve that. We locally can't solve that. I mean, there's no way that we could say, okay, you retired people, you don't have to pay the school portion of the property taxes anymore, because sure, your taxes are gonna go down, but the people that have kids and the younger people, their taxes are gonna skyrocket. So you're gonna create a vortex, because you won't get anybody moving in town with kids, because their taxes are gonna be so high. And again, that would be something to have a state law, because by state law, you can't segregate the taxpayers like that. So the perception of value is for the people with kids in the school system right now, they're getting a pretty good value for their taxes. For the people that don't have kids in the school system, like Paul and like me, we're paying for other people's kids. I mean, we're paying pretty good taxes for not much, they plow my road. But it's really a tough question when everybody has to support the school system, and they have to. Otherwise, you're gonna create a lopsided tax situation. It's really gonna have problems.
Okay. Paul, so do you need?
Yeah, read it again, yeah.
Sure. So how will you prioritize and manage local spending to ensure that taxes stay affordable, town service obligations are filled, and the taxpayer is receiving value?
All I can do is really go back to my life training, and that's, I was an engineer for 33 years, and my skills required survival included those not limited to, but simplifying complex problems and exceeding customer expectations. These skills all translate to being an effective selectman because the people of this town are our customers. I don't know that I can answer it any better than that.
Great. Okay, so with that finishes my questions. Hope they were fair and good ones. I'll now allow, the folks here to ask questions. I just ask that everyone, who chooses to ask a question, please step up to the microphone, name and address, and please identify if you are asking this to both candidates or just to one candidate.
Go ahead, Rick.
Like I said, I got a whole list of it typing up here, so.
Okay, great. Yeah, absolutely.
right.
All yours.
Be prepared.
Yeah.
Ricky Hippler, Quaker Street. Bruce knows Paul, this is the first time I met you. 20 years on the fire department, still currently on, and 9 years behind that side of the desk. So I've been there.
Been there, done that.
Correct. So this is to both. All my questions are to both. Paul, you raised a couple of questions that I formulated, but it's going to be to both of you. We'll speak to seniors in town. Obviously, that's a large demographic that we have. With people moving into town of all ages and requesting more services of the town, there's an increased strain on the town services. How do you anticipate to keep the level of service the town is demanding without raising the budget?
The age-old question. I am proposing trying to get some things started in town that might raise more revenue. I don't know that I have a complete list of everything that will work, but I think that's probably about the only way to go.
Okay.
The town doesn't have the stomach to fund the recreation department as it is. So to add any more services in that area, whether it be for seniors, for kids, whatever, it's gonna have to take some private funding. Because unless things change dramatically at the polls, I don't think the money is gonna be there that the town's gonna support. So that's gonna take some real active people in generating and coming up with ideas to find private funding. And I'm not sure that that's a role of the selectmen.
Okay. An easy one. I'll give you guys an easy one. Paul, how many times have you visited the DPW, firehouse, or police station, actual shoes in the facility?
Just once.
And that was,
Well, I went to the fire department
Okay.
today,
okay,
but I had spoken to Mark earlier, and the police wouldn't let me in because they're all sick,
well,
supposedly.
I guess I can't blame him then.
Yeah. Well, at first I was gonna go down, but he called me back and he said, boy, you probably shouldn't come here. But, and I was
Understood.
down talking to Jason today, in fact.
Very good,
Had a long conversation. I understand what he's got going on.
okay,
It's difficult.
yeah,
I've been to the DPW station, maybe not hundreds of times, but dozens.
figures much, yeah.
I've been to the fire station 20 times maybe. I've been all through the facility. I've been to the police department about 6 times, all through the facility. I've been to the transfer station from top to bottom many times.
Many times,
I was one of the original hammer swingers down at the River Road Bridge. It's on the red list right now, and we were
Easy with that
determined it
hammer.
was junk.
yeah, easy with that hammer.
We made
Yeah.
the phone call, and they said, get a bigger hammer.
Yeah. Okay, okay. We have older buildings in town, Clinton Grove, Town Hall, et cetera. There was a list generated in 2015 on major items needing to be repaired at the Town Hall, but funds are always a limiting factor. What's your feelings, ideas on upkeep or maintenance of those buildings?
I think it's necessary. It should, I guess it has to go in the budget, to a higher degree.
Okay.
Again, I'm a limited government type of guy, so I don't like having, more taxes, but the property's worth a lot of money these days, so.
I mean, I guess, all right,
The alternative is to sell it off, but
I'll follow that up with, yeah, I mean, are you in support of keeping the Clinton Grove Academy, are you in support of keeping the Town Hall
yeah,
under town ownership?
I think so, yes.
Okay,
The town hall, yes, I think that building is manageable and what needs to be done. I think it needs an overall scope of work, what needs to be done and budgeted and maybe put through on a town warrant, like we do capital equipment, and say, look, we're gonna need $400,000 to fix that building up. We wanna take $75,000 a year and break it down into bits, but we wanna approve the whole thing so we can, when we start the project, we know we can finish it. Clinton Grove, I've never been into that building, to be honest with you. That's one of the few town buildings I don't think I've been in. I've been up in the bell tower of the town hall, the clock tower, bell tower.
that makes 2 of us.
Yeah. So, and I don't know of many people other than the Historic Society that has been in Clinton Grove. I don't know if the town needs to keep spending money on something that is, I don't think ever gonna get used.
Okay, no, that answers that. Social media, all it has is bad and it's good. Do you use it, and what is your take on town-related topics with the use of it?
Can I phone a friend?
I go first on that one if you want.
Yeah, go right ahead.
Okay, yeah,
I use it. I use it sparingly because I don't want to get into debates with people on social media, and when that happens, it always devolves into something that you don't want it to be. But I do monitor, I do occasionally chime in, but I don't carry on with things. I think it's a good tool for getting the pulse of people or for answering questions. A lot of times people just have questions, especially when the tax bills come out. We did a revaluation there, everybody's questioning how come their property values went up so much money, but, they don't understand how that whole system of balancing out the property values in town works. So, I mean, I explained that a few times on there. But I think it's, but I think as a town, as a planning board member even, I had to be careful because I didn't want to give the opinion I was biased about anything or let something on there bias me.
Understood.
I'm not a big social media guy. I understand the value of it. I've kept it to a limit, a minimum in my life, just for some of the reasons that Bruce suggested. Tell me one more time what you're driving at there with that question.
I mean, it's a tool. It can be utilized in a good way and a bad way, right? But there is a lot. I mean, there's a couple of Facebook pages that are related to town stuff, and as Bruce stated, I mean, some people are on the reservation, some of them are off the reservation. But it allows you to get a pulse of a lot of people that won't come down here. The 9 years I spent behind that desk, there was a lot of conversation on social media that never manifested to an email, a phone call, or somebody standing here at the podium. But again, it does allow you to see what's going on in people's lives that are attached to these
Yeah.
at the hip. And that was just, again, it's kind of, that was my question is it can be a tool, it can also be your worst enemy, but kind of what you're feeling on it.
Yeah, I don't agree with it to that degree. I've seen more havoc than not
Okay.
with it.
Ricky, can we do two more questions, just so we can get to everyone else?
That's all I've got, is two more.
Okay,
So,
perfect,
yep,
thank you.
yep. 6,500 registered voters in town roughly, and the last primary got probably all 6,500 out. The town struggles to get 1,300 on a good year out for town ballot. What's your idea of getting more people into the ballot box for town-related votes? And we'll go with Bruce.
Yeah, they go with me first. You know, every town around, everybody, this town has struggled with for years, every town struggles with it. People, I think, you can take that two ways. If only 1,300 people are going to vote out of 6,500, that means the town isn't doing half bad. Because they're not going down there to vote no for everything. So that means they're accepting what the town is doing as a decent job.
Okay.
And to get 500 or 1,000 no votes on a piece of equipment out of 65, you consider it as a whole, out of 6,500 registered voters, although it's the majority of who showed up, so it fails, but it's still not a bad result. Because you didn't get 6,000 no votes, you got 1,000.
Understood.
So and they go out for the more broader votes, the national votes, because they think their vote matters more there, but it really doesn't. It matters more next week. Because what we pay in our property taxes in New Hampshire is a substantial amount of our tax burden.
Understood. Thank you.
So the seniors in the town have all the wisdom, so they should be transported to the voting booth. And make sure they vote.
Okay. That kind of caveats on my last question. Paul, you mentioned you wanted to make local places to go, sports center, bowling alley, et cetera.
Sure.
Where would you anticipate to put these? And would they be privately funded or publicly funded?
I think they're only good ideas if they're profitable. I don't suggest that they, be a tax burden to the town. Where in fact they go, I honestly know.
Okay.
I know there was lots of conversation about the East Road and all that. Could you put one out there? I don't know. But
So would it be a town, would they be town run or would they be private sector run?
It would depend on what's more profitable. I would imagine town run would be more profitable, but you never know.
Okay.
You know.
Very good. Bruce?
there's a couple different ways to do that. This is just an example, it's not, it's not anywhere near the scale that the town of Ware would do, but the Verizon Center in Manchester. It's on, the city owns it. It's run by a private company, and the private company guarantees Manchester X amount of dollars a year, which is what they're using to pay for it. So that's a joint venture between private and public sectors. And something like that may be an approach to take on something on East Ware. The East Ware Road is not out in the field, obviously, but out in the back, it's a pretty good-sized piece of land. And the rec department wants something down in Bolton Fields even. And there is a little room there for something. It's gonna take a lot of site work, but there's room there for something. And we've got a couple other ball fields around that if they had an indoor facility, instead of having to use an outdoor facility, I'm sure it could be converted. But if we could do like a private-public
Joint partnership.
so it help, so the town is essentially assuring the private person, you know, they're funding it with a bond, something, or a bond or something, but it gets paid for by the private party. That's one way of doing it without costing the taxpayers.
Very good. That was literally all I had.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Sitting too long. Frank Campana, Quaker Street. I'll try to make the question pertinent to both people, but more so to Mr. Fillmore. I read from a candidate's, I think this came from the Where in the World, my wife printed it out. It was questions asked to you specifically in a profile. And one question, what could town government do to improve, what could town government improve and how? And it caught my eye. I will read this. The select board needs to garner full respect of its employees and volunteers. This is severely lacking at the current time. Hence the problems the town has hiring and retaining employees. I've heard for many times, all over the state, all over the country, that money is the problem for hiring, to hire people. The state is down many positions to fill. Towns around Ware, same position. So my question to you is, in regards to the town the problems the town has hiring and retaining employees, what information do you have to substantiate that the fault is due to the selectmen?
There are many studies that have been done that prove that pay isn't the only reason why a person stays at a job. They could be paid twice as much as any other job within a 100-mile radius of where they are for the job they do, but if they're not treated respectfully and not happy, they're gonna leave. In the same token, if you have a workplace where people are, and this is a workplace for the employees, if you have a workplace where they're happy with their work, they feel like they're wanted and needed, they'll work for less money. So we don't need to be the highest paying town hall around, but we need to treat all of our employees, every single one of them, with full respect and make sure that they're respected by everybody that walks through the door, not just a particular board. So we need to, it's got to be a little culture change. And it starts here at the selectmen because they're the ones in charge.
Okay. I agree with what you say, but you didn't, and I'll leave it to you. You can stop me if it's appropriate. Okay.
You can ask a follow-up to clarify, and we'll just leave it at that.
Do you want me to respond to that?
Yes, I do. In your limited, touching base with the different departments, do you have any indication to know that the town, that it's a lack of some degree of respect to the town employees that is a problem in hiring and retaining employees?
Well, again, I think, leadership is extremely important when it comes to, retaining employees. Yes, it's not always money. And really, the sense of community and the ability to work just down the end of the street, within town, I think is sufficient to keep employees on.
Okay. Okay, thanks. Thank you.
Richard Black, Old Town Road, just to follow up on that. Yeah, there was a real good example of what was described as wanting to work for the town and having respect for the employees and for the employees to feel as though they wanted. And that was just a few years ago. We lost a public works director because of some issues with the Board of Selectmen. And shortly after that, the fallout was, and I'm not sure how many employees left, but at least 4 or 5 employees left because we lost a good public works director. Had nothing to do with money. I think we want to be competitive, and as far as respect, being competitive and being paid a reasonable wage for the work that they're doing is also accountability. So I'd like to address that as a question. How many, are we allowed a certain number of questions? or-
As long as everyone has the opportunity to ask, you can ask, and I'll just keep a run on time, so. you're
Because
good.
you took up about the first 15 minutes.
Take as long as you need.
How would you address accountability with employees, department heads and employees? How would you do that? What would be the mechanism for you to make sure that the department head is doing a good job, that the employees that work for the department head respect that particular individual, and that those employees are doing the job based on an evaluation by the department head? How would you do that? What would be the mechanism to do that?
In my years, I've had to sit down with employees numerous times and try to understand, where they're coming from and whether they're enjoying their job, and that's, typically visible on-site, but not necessarily off-site, as we would be, the Board of Selectmen. I don't know past that, any other way to communicate with them, to understand how happy they are or they aren't. Does that answer the question?
No.
No?
Want me to ask it in a different way?
Say it again, yeah.
Yeah, performance evaluations, is a way to document how well an employee is doing.
Sure,
Whether it's an employee that works for a department head or a department head that works for the Board of Selectmen.
yeah.
And in some cases, if it's a poor performing employee, you need a paper trail, right? A verbal warning, written warning, and then a formal review process that indicates what the issues are and what needs to be corrected. I guess I answered my own question. You missed the boat on that one, because it's not verbal. It's not just going around management by walking around. It's having a formal process in place to evaluate employees and to counsel employees in terms of what they could do to improve if they need improvement, or if the employees are interested in doing something within the organization, but what do they need for education and support to get there?
But all with the understanding of retaining employees, right? I mean, that's
It's
ultimately
accountability.
where you're driving at, right?
Well, as an example, if you're working next to a person who's, is underperforming, and the person that's gonna know it is the person that's working next to them, they goof off, they're only put in 3 or 4 hours. And they get a raise,
Yeah,
a 6% raise,
yeah,
because everybody gets the same raise.
yeah,
Isn't that gonna bother you in terms of morale?
sure.
The first thing that needs to happen is the structure needs to be honored by everybody. The select board, the town administrator, the department heads, each department head's employees, the whole structure needs to be honored which right now it's not. You know, the department heads need to work with the town administrator a lot more, and the selectmen need to work with the department heads a lot less. This structure isn't selectmen to department heads' employees. There's a town administrator in there that needs to be more fully involved. So that needs to be ironed out. And then, obviously, you got your your annual evaluation process, or maybe semi-annual if you've got a problem employee, and the employees need to feel comfortable enough so they can go to their manager and discuss, and mention that, gee, Joe over here working next to me is just leaning on his table all day while I'm doing all the work. So that I'm all for merit pay. I'm not for everybody gets a 3% raise, everybody gets a 4% raise. But unfortunately, some of the union contracts make that a little tough.
It's just one, really.
Yeah. But I'm all for merit pay. That's the only way you're gonna get the guy that wants to work harder compensated for what he's willing to do,
Or she.
or she, the person. And they need to be rewarded for taking on, take that extra work. And sooner or later, the one that's slacking, next one, gonna say, geez, they're getting paid more, and we're the same thing. And it'll dawn in their head, well, because they're working more.
Bruce got up a point, and I just wanted to ask that question of you, is, do you believe in merit-based pay raises?
Yes, absolutely.
So,
As long as it's in we're in Jeopardy style.
We're in Jeopardy now?
Form of a question, please.
as far as the buildings go, and I get surprised every time I hear a question asked by a former selectman, and talking about, is Ricky still here? There he is. Bruce, let me know if he's gonna.
You was one yourself.
Clinton Grove, they have more money set up for that building as a result of a bequeath that was left to the town, and it's matured. I think they have close to $800,000. I was looking for it, it's not in the town report. $800,000 set aside for any improvements in that building. That is one building in the town that doesn't need any money from us. And it's questionable what could be done with that building. I think the Historical Society wants to preserve it. And maybe, but that's about as far as we've gone, is preserving the building. As far as the town hall and this building here, they should be reserved by taxation. There should be capital reserves set up if there are certain things that need to be done over there. Money set aside every year to fund those capital reserve funds for a specific goal, not to just throw money into it, $100,000 every year, but it should be $200,000. We want to do this, and it's going to take us 3 years to get there. Okay, people in town can understand that and appreciate that. Same thing with this building. That we put money into this building. So there are funds established, capital reserve funds that are established. How do you feel about capital reserve funds in terms of identifying what the need is? There's a reason for that fund to be established. That's codified. It can only be used for whatever that fund was established for. But in terms of funding it and presenting information to the voters, right? Voters in this town are very fair and equitable when it comes to spending money, as long as they know what it's being spent for. Now, how do you do that? Because the Board of Selectmen, basically, you own the warrant, and information is presented to the voters through the deliberative session, principally, and placed on the warrant. So how do you do that? How do you make sure that the voters understand what the money is being used for? How do you dictate to people that are putting that information together, you need to have a plan in place. We need to know how much, and we understand if it's a 5-year plan, prices could go up a little bit, so you make an adjustment. But how do you do that? How do you get that point across?
Obviously, it would be on paper, of course, but, to the townspeople, how do you justify it to them? I think everybody's in favor of putting money away for that rainy day when you need something, the town needs something done, or fixed or repaired, or I had kind of that conversation with Jason today down at, relative to the, the fund that they have down there. And I'm in favor of keeping it, 100% at the landfill. For the very reason, as you're saying, them more than anybody, there's gonna be times when they need money and they need to, fix something or do something to that effect, so I'm all in favor for it, but, again, how I get that across to the citizens, I don't know, other than through, paperwork and town meetings and flyer, I don't know.
You want me to repeat the question? Because I
No, I
forgot
got
what it was.
There are, like I alluded to at the town hall, I mean, there's companies that do energy audits and can determine what it's gonna take to properly insulate and heat and those kind of upgrades to a building. And matter of fact, there's a guy that lives in town that is the partial owner of one of those companies that would be glad to come down here and look at the old town hall and give us a complete rundown of what it's gonna take to get it, to help preserve it. And it may take an architect to come through and look at it and say what you need to do structurally, what you need to do for, because right now it's got limited occupancy requirements because there's some structural integrity problems with it. But if you get a report and you get everything in writing and get pricing for everything that needs to be done, and you present that to the voters as a whole package. Say, look, it's gonna cost us $400,000, here's what we're gonna get out of it. We wanna do it over 3, 4, 5 years, and, we wanna make the commitment now that we're gonna set aside $7,500,000 every year to do it.
Right.
Same thing with this building. I mean, this building is an old school, and we're in a classroom here. I'm sure there's maybe some, and with the advent and the use of the computer systems that we have today that eliminate the need for bodies, I'm sure, look in the other room, half that room was filled up with file cabinets. I mean, if those file cabinets were gone, there'd be a ton of space in there. And this half of the building could be opened up for a conference room.
Yeah.
There's a lot of opportunities like that to repurpose the building and make it a more usable building for the times.
Okay. I have one more question. You talked about revenue, broadening the tax base, looking for other sources of revenue. I've served, it's now defunct, and it has been for a number of years. The Economic Development Committee, I served on that committee with Wayne for a period of time. Never really could come up with, it's very difficult to entice a company to come to the town of Ware, especially if it's a manufacturing company where you have to move products. We're just geographically not in a great spot. And we want to retain the rural character of the town, so I think expecting businesses to come into town, us being able to try and promote that, we don't have the infrastructure to support it to begin with. We don't have any economic zones that we could use to entice people to come in. I think we're stuck with the homeowners. And
Something we did in Nashua was started a research incubator, because we had there was a lot of factory space, and, it
Sure.
was less expensive. But it worked out very well in the sense that, there was a lot of, engineering work, companies doing engineering work, which wasn't a big drain on resources, town resources. But, some of the businesses, moved out of the incubator and into some pretty big buildings, and they stayed in town because they started in town, so,
what you're looking at and what we're sitting at is one of the biggest buildings in the town.
yeah.
Unfortunately, we don't have that type of base to expand into. We did at one time, the original Economic Development Committee had a plan for the center of town, a number of years ago. had architects come in and they drew up a plan for the town. It was promoted by the state, and we had incubator space where the shoe shop used to be, across from the town hall. That was the plan. A lot of cottage businesses, and hey, give them a storefront, maybe they could do better business or expand their business. But it came to putting an article in the warrant to formalize the plans. And I think at the time it was $17,000. And the voters said no. There's a lot of times, and they did one for Bolton Field. Spent a lot of money to develop a plan, present a plan, and the voters said no. So I hear what you're saying, and it would be nice if that was possible. I don't think it is. I think it is what it is. And to me, you've got to control expenses. You've got to look for other opportunities to reduce costs. Transfer station, nobody's ever looked at, well, maybe we should consider privatizing it. I kind of Googled a couple of towns in New Hampshire before I came here, and there are a few towns out there that now have a company running the transfer station and also providing trash pickup at less cost than what it costs each individual person in this town based on almost a $600,000 annual operating cost for the transfer station. Almost $600,000. So, but it's not, I'm not saying that's the solution, but that's some of the stuff I would like a Board of Selectmen to look into. And is that something that you would consider as a selectman, either individually or collectively with the board, to say, let's pick a project, let's pick something, whatever that looks like it could be privatized, or whatever another alternative would be, and go through that and look at it and, at least get some information and say, yeah, got a possibility or no. So I don't hear that. The select board we have now is stagnant. They react. In my opinion, they react. There's no planning. So
Is this a final question?
I haven't asked the question yet, though.
Well,
Can you?
over the years, we've done,
I guess I did ask the question.
over the years, I've done lots of research and development on all kinds of things, so I'm all about fresh ideas at this point, as I was trying to indicate in the opening.
I missed that. I was trying to get my boat registered next door.
Like you say, that's tough. I mean, we're having a hard time getting the voters to approve updating the master plan. And that's as basic as it gets. And that's part of what before the selectmen could even think about working on something like you have, they have to straighten out what they do already. And right now, and that's my problem, is they're doing things that they don't need to be doing. So they're meeting every Monday night. I mean, they only have to meet every other Monday night, but they're meeting every Monday night. And they're wasting a lot of time doing things that they don't need to be doing. And if they stop that, then they'd have time to do some of these other things, like figure out what to do with these two buildings. How to make better use of the transfer station. And I think, my personal opinion, I think that scale is a great first step. How we handle that when it comes in is an unknown.
You're assuming it's going to be approved by the
And
voters.
Right. But how we handle that, once it's installed, needs to be done right.
I think that's DOA. I mean, the Finance Committee is not recommending it, so it's a tough one.
But
I think I'm
Thank
good.
you, yes, thank you.
Get the book.
I'd actually not planned to get up and talk, but something is really bothering me. We have 5 past selectmen sitting here, so they've all sat on the other side. In each case, there have been issues that the selectmen have tried to handle. Some were successful, some absolutely not. The town has always had a turnover of people. I think from what I read, because I don't watch the selectmen's meetings, so I just read the minutes, I think this particular select board is trying to clean up things that haven't been taken care of for a number of years. So it's a lot of research. I think it's an extremely hardworking board, as every board is. I mean, none of us go into that thinking it's a walk in the park. I think that some things each board has, either by necessity or by choice, have let slide. And I think this particular board is trying to put those things in some kind of order. So you can call, like Dick said, you know, they're just, what did you say, Dick? What did you say?
Stagnant.
Yeah, stagnant, because they're trying to fix things or put things in order that haven't been in order. And so I think that I'm sorry to hear that's your interpretation. The other thing that comes to mind is that a board needs to be diverse, but at the same time work as a team. And I have some concern as I'm listening that what will start overriding is some friction. And I know that over the years, when a volunteer comes in front of a board, and you may just totally disagree with me, but a volunteer comes in front of a board, the boards have automatically said, yeah, sure, we're glad you're volunteering. There's no reason that a board has to give if they say yes or they say no. I've experienced no in my household, and it's not nice to be turned down, but sometimes there are reasons. We don't have to, as a board, you don't have to explain those reasons. I want us just to be, as you each move forward, and one of you will sit behind that table, to remember that you're here for the betterment of the whole community, and not.
Is there a question related to this, or is it?
And so I guess.
I'll allow it, and I'll, just because I gave everyone else an opportunity to have a little bit of a conversation, and I will ask Colleen at the end of this to use the Jeopardy term and
Sure.
Ask in the form of a question.
And I also hear what you're saying. I don't know that I see the same thing that you're seeing, Bruce. I'm not sure if you went back in history that you wouldn't see the same thing with different boards. So what I guess I'm really asking is, how do you, Paul and Bruce, intend to have your own opinions but work as a team for the board? And I don't care who starts.
Lots of parties. Lots of parties. I don't know. I mean, that's, it's give and take with, the different personalities in the board. Something I've had to do all my life. Running a business, I've had to be that way. But I don't know anything else otherwise.
I'm joining the board. I would like to join the board, to work with the board, to write in a listening ship. And it's what it takes, so the whole board has to be on board with working together, not just the one that gets elected next Tuesday. So that's a question for the entire current board too, because I haven't seen that the current board is all that willing to work outside their little bottle either. So that's gonna be a whole project in itself. And I'm, as opposed to running a business when you're the boss, I mean, ultimately, you say to the guy, look, you want a paycheck next week? This is what you're gonna do. You can't do that when you're working with 4 other individuals at the same level.
I appreciate, but isn't the hierarchy, you have the Board of Selectmen, and then you have departments, and department heads are responsible for...
Yeah, but that's not the question you asked. You asked about working with the board. So
Okay,
That's what I
okay.
was answering.
Okay, let me move to the next one. So the hierarchy, is that okay?
Yes.
The hierarchy is the Board of Selectmen on the top, and then you have the heads of your departments. So you have police, you have fire, you have...
But you missed one. You missed the town administrator. That's in
And,
the middle of the meeting.
you didn't let me finish, Bruce.
Yeah, just let her finish.
Okay, you have the town administrator. So the town administrator has a job to do. It's up to the board to decide the job she has to do. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, but she is responsible for, I guess, the people in this building, but also in some way responsible for the heads of all the other departments. Is that correct? Is that your opinion?
The heads of the other departments should report to the town administrator. Their boss, their is not the, ultimately it's a selectman, but they report to the town administrator.
Okay, but that's correct. I mean, I agree
Yeah.
with you on that. So I'm going to leave it there, okay?
Thank you. Are there any other questions?
I got follow-up.
Okay.
I want to get rid of the first.
That's okay, yeah, thank you. Is there anyone who hasn't had the opportunity to ask a question, or series of questions?
I can ask a question. I know neither one of you can probably solve this. It's John Lawton from Oak Hill Road. The elephant in the room is the tax costs for the residents of this town have gone up dramatically, especially in the last, I'd say, 5 or 6 years. And when I say dramatically, for me personally, they've gone up $200, $300, $400 per year. I'm sure if somebody has a better house than I do, they've gone up dramatically more than that. The problem I have is and I think Paul addressed it a little bit, with senior citizens. As people retire and they lose their ability to have increased wages year after year, and they're on basically a fixed Social Security or whatever it may be, I think it's really putting a strain on them. And not only them, but it's putting a strain on some of the younger people who are buying houses too. They're probably just barely getting by being able to afford the houses for the prices today. So an increase in taxes to them is also hurting them also. My point is, if you got somebody on Social Security and there's only one person in that house getting Social Security, let's say they're getting $2,000 a month, $2,200 a month even, their tax bill's $5,000, $6,000. There's 3 months of Social Security wiped out just to pay the taxes. So my question is, and I know the town portion of our tax bill is roughly 20% of the total bill. The school takes up a good portion in the town and everything. And so you probably have a minor effect on what we can do for that. But what would be some ways that we could either cap the tax for senior citizens or cap the amount of money that the town has to spend year after year? I know there's an article in the school warrant to do such a thing. I think that cap is way too high to begin with, but there's got to be some way that this can't just continue to escalate the way it's been escalating over the last 5 or 6 years. You're going to put everybody right out of town. I mean, at least the people who are on some kind of a fixed income. How would you address that as far as that goes? I mean, there's ways, when we're on the select board, we always had people try to come in and limit their increases to a certain amount. Build your budget around a 2% or a 1% or whatever it may be. The same was on the school board. We had those people come in with the school board. You can't present a budget that's 2%. you know, don't have a wish list and just be able to have whatever you want. So my question is, I guess, do you have any ideas on how you could do that? And would you be in favor of doing something like that to, you know, to kind of slow down this rate of tax growth where people are asked to pay? Either one of you or both of you, please respond to that.
The town portion of the tax bill, as you alluded to, is a very small part of what our tax bill we get in the mail says, because of the county tax, state school tax, the local school taxes. And really, the only way the town can save money, I mean, if you look at other towns around us, our number of people that work in this building is half of what other towns have that are of our size. I don't know that savings can be had in the town personnel. I mean, we have a lot of roads we have to maintain. We have to maintain it with big equipment. So we need to keep that in shape to be able to do that. Our fire department, fortunately, had figured out a few years ago how to pretty much self-support their equipment purchases with the ambulance fees. One way to do it is look at technology and how can we use technology to our advantage to maybe reduce the payroll cost that we have currently by investing in some technology systems. There are plenty of systems out there that do things that a lot of people in here do, you know, manually. And you gain some savings there. And I think a lot of it's driven by what equipment costs. I mean, a truck 2 years ago cost us $80,000. 3 years ago, $80,000. Now it's almost twice that. But it's still the same truck. It's still doing what the one we bought 3 years ago does. So we're not, it's just costing us a lot more. We're not getting anything out of it. It's just costing us a lot more. And I don't know how you can cap that and still maintain the roads to the level they've been maintained to. So you have to look for other places, and people are expensive. Insurance and everything else that goes along with it. So if you can get some systems in place that take less people, that would help.
As far as the seniors go, something that's going on in Henniker, in fact, is they're trying to propose an increase to the income limits for people who are eligible for property tax exemptions. They want to raise that, because right now it's too low. You know, the seniors that are making, you know, maybe above $20,000 a year by Social Security or anything else for that matter, they don't get an exemption. So they're trying to raise that up at least to, you know, like $50,000. So that's a help, but it puts a burden back on the town, because now all the seniors are tax exempt. Some portion of them. I don't know what that would be. Another option is seniors on a fixed income should be allowed, and this bill went through the State House sometime recently, a while back ago. Seniors on a fixed income should be allowed to skip paying property taxes without eviction, but with a long-term lien without interest. Yeah, but you know, to get that going in the town, it would be a while before you started to collect on liens. But some of the people I've been talking to in the past month, whether it's door knocking or people calling, there's people that are hurting. They're in trouble.
There's a lot of people there.
So
It brings up a good point, Bruce. You said people are expensive, and I agree with you, they are. Is there any way that we could maybe reduce some of the costs of those people. For instance, insurance, I believe they only pay 10% of their cost, the cost of the town for their insurance, their health insurance in town. Would you be in favor of having them pay more of a percentage for that coverage as a way of reducing the amount of personnel costs?
I would not.
You would
I would
not?
be more inclined to, when people have technology in place, so when people retire, when people leave for whatever reason, then they don't get replaced. There would be a bigger savings to the town in the long term, and not essentially take it out of the employees' pockets. To tell an employee, you're gonna make $2,000 less next year than you are this year, but even with the raise we gave you, that's not a way to treat them. There are a lot of companies out there that don't require employees to pay anything into their insurance,
I don't know of many anymore that do that.
but there are.
Even when I was working, and that was quite a while ago, we were paying up like 30, 40, 50% of our wages, so, and we were in high tech at that time. So, I mean, there was a lot of companies, and I don't know many private companies that don't do that anymore. And so I think that's a hell of a benefit they're getting, I believe. And I think it would probably be something to look at least to try to reduce some of the costs.
I remember when towns used to be able to make, and I don't know if they can even do it anymore, I'm not sure of the state law on this. They used to be able to make deals with people saying, you know, when they get to a certain point, they say, okay, you don't have to pay taxes anymore, but when you die, the house is ours.
Right.
I don't even know if a town can do that legally anymore, but it used to be done on a regular basis.
I don't know if that's fair either, I mean, you know, for that person, but,
It's like a reverse mortgage almost.
yeah, I know, but still, you've worked all your life for that house, now you're gonna give it back to the town, right? That doesn't seem right.
Yeah,
That just,
especially if you got family.
no, that doesn't seem right at all. You didn't answer that question, would you be in favor of
Would you like to
looking
answer
in,
the question about the,
increasing the
Employee
amount of
contributions.
contribution that the employees make towards their health insurance?
Why?
It's about 10% right now, I believe.
Okay. And would I be in favor of increasing that? Is that
Yes, the percentage
the percentage?
that they pay towards their health insurance.
I have not thought about that. I'm not sure I know. Insurance goes up, I don't know what else to say.
Certainly does.
Yeah. So whether the town pays for it or whether they have to pay for it,
But when you say when the town pays for it, we're paying for it.
I know.
Okay.
Yep.
thanks. Any other questions before we do any other repeats? Okay, Ricky.
I'll follow up on the last speaker a little bit, Ricky Quick Street. It's more of a statement than a question. Is that all right?
Yeah,
It's short.
I'll allow it.
Usually people go work for the town for the benefits, so making them pay more when we already don't, all we offer is insurance. We don't offer dental, we don't offer vision, we don't offer a short-term or long-term without it being on the employee 100%. So that's a tough sell for me. There was talk about raises and them being merit-based. My experience on that side of the desk was that I obviously came from the fire side. I had that experience live. I've worked on trucks my entire life, so I know about the DPW. But how do you quantify merit marks? And this is for both of you. How do you quantify merit marks on a 1 to 5 scale, we'll say, when you've never done the job that your department heads are in charge of? Is it solely based on the interaction with them at this podium, email, etc.? Or is it just that, hey, my road got paved, the fire got put out, or the speeder got stopped? How do you quantify how they performed, the department heads? Because the department heads can obviously quantify what their employees did, but how does this board quantify the department heads?
I think that leads back to an earlier question, you know, how do you find out how happy the employees are? And I don't know if there's any other thing,
Okay.
right? If the employees are happy and they're not losing employees, the department heads, then I guess things are going pretty well.
You need to include the town administrator who interacts with the department heads on a daily basis, and ultimately not ultimately, but they do report to the town administrator to participate a lot in the evaluations. And then the selectmen can go over that with the town administrator on a personnel basis.
Okay. All right, all right. And my last question, and this is only directed to Paul. Paul, were you on any committees or government in Nashua when you lived there?
Yes, election board.
Okay. Okay, that's my question. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Last call for any questions before I ask both candidates to provide a closing. Okay, great. I think we'll go Bruce and then Paul, so Bruce.
Sure. I really want to work with the current board. I want to work with them, not against them. I know they have I believe they have a hard time seeing that right now. But I chose to go this route, running for office of selectman, to help where I perceive their problems to be. If I get on here and I'm proven otherwise, then that's fine too. And I know they've done a lot of work in getting, I've been involved in some of it at the planning board level, with getting procedures and things like that up to speed that weren't looked at for a long time. So I understand that aspect of it. And they really did dig pretty deep, and they've been doing a good job at it. But there's more to be done, and I'd like to be part of it. That's it.
Thanks again for the evening and setting this all up. I'd like to state for the record, the town provides all of the services for $9 million a year, those services being police, fire, public works, and all they do, administration, library, parks, etc. They do all of that for $9 million a year. It receives $4 million from state collected meals tax and local vehicle registrations. Of the $25 million collected by the town in property taxes, only $5 million are needed to supplement the town's budget, while the remaining $20 million go into the school systems. If elected, I will propose to increase the income limits for people to be eligible for property tax exemptions available to seniors and people with disabilities. I have not come up through the ranks of the town government, and I am not intimate with all these issues and policies, but I do believe my skill set will get me up to speed quickly. Generally speaking, there's finally national hope, and I do think the town of Ware should be excluded. Please send me your ideas, feedback to my email address, dolmanselect@protonmail.com, if you want one of these. And for instance, someone suggested a 55 and up housing community would be a great idea that came through email. So, those are great things. With all that said, I'm asking for your vote on March 11th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Great. Thank you both. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, Paul, for participating. Thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight, and for everyone at home watching. So we'll conclude. Thank you very much.
Dan.